My name is Emily Hart. I am 38 years old. I live with my husband Thomas and my mother-in-law in a luxury apartment in the Westwood area of Los Angeles. The apartment is on the 15th floor of a high-rise building with a view overlooking the park. Every evening, the breeze slipping through the window feels like it's trying to soothe the long days I silently endure. We moved here 7 years ago when Thomas was promoted to deputy director of the West Coast branch. He always said, when you live in a big city, you can't live in a shabby place. You deserve somewhere like this. So, even though the rent was $4,800 a month, I agreed. What he didn't know was that I was the one quietly covering that cost, year after year. Thomas is 9 years older than me. He's divorced and has a son named Logan, who's now 20 and studying in Arizona. When he was little, Logan lived with his grandmother, Thomas's mother, in their old home in San Diego. When Thomas and I got married, she moved in with us, saying it's to keep the family close. But deep down, I knew. I was just a stranger who stumbled into their family tree. Right after we married, Thomas held my hand and said, I know you can't have children after the treatments back then. That doesn't change anything for me. Family is what we choose, not just what we're born into. I believed that, and I tried to live up to being a good wife and daughter-in-law, even though my mother-in-law has never once called me by my name with any warmth. Her name is Martha. She's 67 this year, a woman of few words but with eyes sharp as steel. From the first day I stepped into the house, she looked me up and down and gave a half smile. You do know how to keep yourself in shape, don't you? I smiled politely, thinking it was a compliment. Looking back, I was naive. Martha kept a clear distance from me. At every meal, she only asked Tomas about work, Logan about school. As for me, I was invisible. If I accidentally broke a glass, she'd sigh as if I had brought the whole world crashing down. Still, I tried. I switched from working full-time as a pharmacist to part-time at a private pharmacy so I could handle housework, just to avoid being seen as useless. Every morning, I got up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast, then took the train to work. I wouldn't get home until nearly 7 p.m. By then, my husband and mother-in-law had already eaten. I'd eat alone, quietly in the cold kitchen. On nights like that, I'd remind myself, this is my home. This is the family I chose. But some nights, not even I believed that anymore. Once, when Logan was home for summer break, I suggested the whole family go see a movie. Martha immediately shut it down. We already have plans. You don't need to come. I turned to Tomas, hoping for some support. He quietly changed the subject. Over time, I understood my place in this family was like a piece of furniture. Nice to have, but no one would notice if it was gone. Each month, I quietly transferred rent money from my personal account. I never told Thomas. He still thought his company was covering housing costs. He used to be the provider, but after layoffs at his firm, I became the only one keeping this household standing, and no one noticed. Only I knew. If I ever stopped, everything would collapse like a sandcastle in the wind. I once believed a sincere promise could hold a marriage together, especially when that promise came from Thomas, the man who was gentle with words and steady by my side in the early years. When we decided to get married, I told him about my cancer treatments and my inability to have children. I thought I'd see regret flash in his eyes, but I didn't. He held my hand and softly said, I didn't choose you to have kids. I chose you because I can't imagine living the rest of my life without you. I cried at those words. But now, looking back, that promise faded faster than I ever expected. Because over time, I came to realize the shadow of his ex-wife, Allison, and his son, Logan, never truly left our home. My mother-in-law, Martha, acted perfectly polite in the beginning. She called me Emily, dear, and invited me for hot tea every Sunday afternoon. But that grace was as thin as morning mist gone the moment I started changing even the smallest habits in the kitchen, which she clearly viewed as her domain. Once, I replaced the old brown tablecloth with a silver gray one. When Thomas complimented that the house looked brighter, Martha gave a slight nod. But that night, when we were alone in the kitchen, she leaned in and whispered, "I don't know who taught you that changing everything means you're in charge, but don't forget, those who come later should know their place." I froze. I didn't answer. I gave her a soft smile, walked into my room, and told myself I was just being too sensitive. But those casual comments kept happening, more and more. Every time Logan returned for vacation, the apartment transformed into a whole different world. A world I didn't belong to. Logan didn't hate me, but he always kept his distance, just a polite glance and a brief nod. I used to think he was just shy. But later I discovered he had grown up hearing endless negative stories about me that his grandmother had spun day after day. One time, while I was cleaning the living room, Martha's phone slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. The screen hadn't locked yet. On the messaging app, I saw a conversation between her and an old friend from San Diego. "That girl is just acting. She softened Thomas up because she can't have kids. If I were Logan, I wouldn't want to call her mom either." I don't know how long I stood there cleaning, cloth in hand, heart sinking like a stone. Her words cut like cold steel through my chest. I had never expected Logan to call me mom. All I ever wanted was a little respect, or at least a chance to understand each other. That night, I brought it up to Thomas. He was silent for a while, then simply said, "Mom's old. Sometimes she says things without thinking. Don't take it to heart." Just like that. With one sentence, everything that hurt me was swept aside like dust on a table. That's when I realized, in this family, I was the only one expected to adapt. No one else felt obligated to meet me halfway. One afternoon in April, Logan came home wearing muddy shoes. He walked right across the new white rug I had just laid down. I politely asked him to be more careful. Martha immediately cut in sharply. "He's Thomas's son. He has every right in this house." I bit my lip and said nothing. But inside, something shattered. Something that would never piece back together. Even after living in this apartment for 7 years, I was never allowed to hang a single photo of my own on the wall. The living room was filled with old wooden framed pictures of Thomas, Logan, and Allison, coated in fresh paint but unable to hide the past. I once suggested updating the frames. Martha instantly refused. Thomas's memories can't be replaced just because someone wants to hide the truth. I wasn't sure if she was talking about me or herself, but I knew one thing: I had never truly had a place in that house. Logan left home right after receiving his acceptance letter from Arizona State University. The day he packed his bags, my mother-in-law stood on the porch with pride in her eyes, dusting off his suitcase like she couldn't bear to part with a piece of her own body. "Make sure you eat well, don't catch a cold. Call me if anything happens," she said, voice trembling. Thomas gave his son a pat on the shoulder. As for me, I stood by the doorway, smiling. Logan didn't hug me or call me by name. He just gave a small nod and got into the car. I told myself, it's okay. I don't need more than that. What I didn't know was that would be the last time the house felt even a little warm. The moment Logan left, everything changed so quickly I couldn't keep up. Martha became a different person. If she had once just quietly expressed her disapproval, now she openly lashed out at me, like I was the outlet for the void her grandson left behind. "How do you even cook eggs this dry? Thomas would probably get a stomachache from this. This tablecloth doesn't match the furniture. Learn how to coordinate colors. The living room is dusty. Don't you know how to wipe with a damp cloth? Didn't your mother teach you anything?" Her words were like tiny blades, not enough to kill outright, but thousands of cuts that left me bleeding slowly every day. I used to respond gently, saying things like, "I'll pay more attention," or "Sorry, I got home late from work today." But the more I tolerated, the worse it got. Some nights I couldn't sleep, tossing and turning in the only room I was allowed to call mine in that entire apartment. Thomas didn't seem to care. He came home later than before, always tired. When I told him how his mother would lash out for no reason, he just sighed. He's just sad that Logan's gone. Please try to be understanding, okay? I've already tried so much, I wanted to say. But I stayed silent, not out of fear, just because I was so used to no one ever standing up for me. One day, I came home earlier than usual because the pharmacy was closed for maintenance. As I opened the door, I saw my mother-in-law sitting on the sofa, talking on the phone. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She just didn't know I was there. Her voice rose clearly. Ever since that girl stepped into this house, everything has fallen apart. She doesn't know how to care for anyone. And Thomas is blind? Logan even told me he once heard Emily say that life would be easier without him. Can you believe that? What kind of stepmother says something that cruel? I froze in place. I had never said that. I never hated Logan, never wished him gone. I had just been exhausted. Maybe I muttered something in a moment of frustration, but I never meant harm. That night, I knocked on Tomas's door. Thomas, do you believe me? He looked at me, slightly startled. What's going on? I told him everything. About the phone, about the slander, about how I had never truly had a voice in my own home. Thomas stayed silent. After a long pause, he finally said, "You're just being overly sensitive. Mom doesn't have any reason to lie about you." I turned away. My heart pounded, not from hurt, but from the realization that I was living in a family where all of my feelings were dismissed as irrational. The months that followed felt like I was just a shadow in my own home. Every morning, I got up early to cook, do laundry, clean. I'd come home in the evening, eat a quick, cold dinner, then wash dishes, mop the floor, and check the windows before turning off the lights. No one ever asked if I was tired. No one noticed I had lost nearly 11 pounds in 2 months. Only the mirror in the bathroom looked back at me every morning with lifeless eyes. I didn't know when I would finally break, but I knew something was quietly burning inside me. And then it happened. A text from Logan, a careless comment from Martha, a glance Thomas avoided. Each tiny detail, seemingly harmless, led to a turning point none of us could have predicted. It all began one September afternoon. I had just walked through the front door when Martha called out from the living room, her voice unusually excited. "Emily, Logan and his wife, Candace, will be staying here for a while. Candace is 7 months pregnant. They'll be giving birth at the Southern Hospital, closer to us." I froze. Logan has a wife? I hadn't even known he'd gotten married. And now he was going to be a father? Oh, I see. When are they arriving? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Next week. And we have to get everything ready. It all needs to be perfect. After work, clean the upstairs room, change the sheets, scrub the wooden floor. Then, this weekend, we'll go get a crib, a car seat, a bottle sterilizer. We need to buy everything." I looked at her, her eyes glowing like she'd just hit the lottery. For the first time in months, she seemed truly animated. But what made my stomach drop wasn't her excitement. It was the sinking feeling that I was about to be completely erased from this family portrait. "I'll clean the room," I said softly. "But when it comes to buying baby things, maybe Logan and Candace should pick them out themselves." She turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "What do you know? That's my grandchild. I know Logan better than anyone. And you don't get a say in this. You're not blood." I stood still. That sentence, sharp as a blade, struck a nerve I had buried for years. I didn't fight back. I didn't cry. I just turned away, slowly untied my apron, and went to my room. My heart thudded, not out of rage, but because I knew the line had just been crossed. The days that followed were pure repetition of misery. Martha stormed around the house like a supervisor on a power trip, barking orders from dawn. Emily, the throw pillows in the living room need replacing. The sofa needs deep cleaning. Oh, and take out some money. I need to go to Target for baby things. How much do you need? I asked dryly. 1,000 should be enough. I'll get high-quality stuff. My grandchild isn't going to use cheap junk. $1,000. While I was already shouldering the rent each month on a part-time pharmacist's salary, I transferred the money without another word. Candace and Logan arrived on a Saturday afternoon, loaded with bags. Candace was quite pretty, with a round belly and a tired smile. Logan avoided eye contact and gave a curt nod. I offered them water, but Martha immediately cut in. Emily, don't bother them. Head to the kitchen and help me make chicken soup. I turned toward the kitchen, listening to their chatter from behind me, feeling like a maid in the home I was paying for. I cooked, served, and cleaned until late into the evening. Just as I finished washing the last dish, Martha walked over and handed me a long list. Next week, we'll need more things: a baby rug, pajamas for Candace, a breast pump, vitamins. You know what to do, right? I swallowed hard. Don't you think maybe we should ask Logan and Candace what they actually need first? There you go again. You don't have kids, you wouldn't understand. Don't interfere, just stick to your chores. I let out a laugh. For the first time in months, I laughed. Not because something was funny, but because I realized, in this house, I was no longer seen as a person with feelings or opinions. I was simply a laborer and a wallet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop, quietly checked my bank balance, then started looking up moving services and one-bedroom rentals near the pharmacy. I didn't know exactly where I would go, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living here, playing the role of an unwanted extra. I had no idea what would happen next, but deep inside, I already had a plan. And this time, I would be the one to end the role of the good daughter-in-law. I never imagined that after 11 years of marriage, the person who would tell me to leave this home would be my mother-in-law, not my husband. That morning started like any other. I got up early, made breakfast, poured almond milk into a glass for Candace, she's lactose intolerant, and toasted bread for Martha as usual. The kitchen was filled with the smell of butter and coffee. Logan was still asleep, and Thomas was supposedly on a 3-day business trip, as he'd texted me the night before. I set the glass of milk on the table, barely opened my mouth to greet her, when Martha's voice cut through. Emily, today is your last day in this house. I thought I misheard her. What did you say? I said it clearly. You don't need to make breakfast anymore. Logan and Candace need space to raise their child. I don't think this house needs 2 mothers. She emphasized the last words with unmistakable contempt. I stood, frozen, unable to move. The vein at my temple pulsed rapidly. And, she continued, Thomas agrees. He said, living with you now is like living with a shadow, and no man wants to live with a shadow forever. Maybe he's found someone who makes him feel alive again. I slowly set the dish towel down on the kitchen counter. You're saying Thomas is seeing someone else? I'm not confirming anything, she shrugged. But isn't it strange how often he's been going on business trips lately? And tell me, has he been calling you every night like he used to? I picked up my phone and dialed Thomas. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. I sent him a message. Thomas, your mom said some strange things. Please call me. The message sent. No reply. My heart thudded, not from suspicion, but because my instincts were screaming, this time Martha might not be lying. I looked straight at her. I'm not leaving until I've spoken directly with my husband. She raised an eyebrow. Do you think you get to decide anything? Your name isn't on the lease. All the bills are under Thomas's name. You're not blood. You're not raising a child. You're just a guest who's overstayed her welcome. I gave a cold smile. Funny, considering I've been paying the rent for the past 2 years. She blinked. You? What did you say? Thomas's salary dropped significantly after last year's layoffs. He kept his title, but not the paycheck. I've been covering the entire rent, every single month, from my own account. You didn't know because I never told you. Her hands clenched, her eyes flickering, but her voice remained sharp. Then you should leave even more. You have money, you have options. There's no reason to cling to this place anymore. I didn't reply. I turned around and went upstairs. I looked around the room that had once felt like the only safe place in this house. I knew then I wasn't going to let them shove me out like some squatter. I tried calling Thomas again, this time dialing directly to his office. A man answered. Thomas Harper? He's taken 3 days off starting yesterday. I stood in silence. My hand gripped the phone tightly, the ringing in my ears louder than anything else. That evening I walked out of the house and wandered until I found a small cafe open late near Venice Boulevard. I needed to breathe, I needed to think. Sitting in the corner booth, I ordered a cappuccino, pulled out my phone, and scrolled through my photo gallery. A picture of me, Thomas and Martha, popped up. Taken 3 years ago during a trip to Yellowstone. Thomas looked different then. Smiling, relaxed, present. I gently swiped the screen, then quietly changed my wallpaper to a solid black background. I made a decision. If Thomas didn't call me by morning, I would call a lawyer. I wasn't looking for a fight, but if they forced me to pack up and disappear in the night like some thief, I'd rather walk away with dignity than stay like a ghost in my own life. What I didn't expect was that I was about to uncover a truth far more painful than betrayal. Something even Martha wouldn't see coming. Something that would turn everything back on her. That night I couldn't go back home. I wandered through the glowing streets of Los Angeles with no clear destination. Blinking signs, traffic noise, even the smell of pizza from a corner shop. Everything passed by me like scenes from a film on fast forward. I stepped into a small bar on Melrose Avenue, the one Thomas and I used to go to when we were newlyweds. It was his favorite place to take me every weekend, back when we were still two people who listened to each other. The bar was still there. The only thing that had changed was us. I chose a table near the window. The bartender, a young woman with short brown hair, maybe around 25, looked at me, then suddenly smiled. "You're Emily, right, Mrs. Harper?" I was surprised and nodded. "Yes. How do you know me?" She hesitated for a moment, then quietly said, "I recognized you from photos on Mr. Thomas's phone. I've been working the night shift here for a while. You're his wife, right?" I felt the blood in my body freeze. "My husband comes here often?" I asked, my voice dropping. She glanced around, then leaned down, pulling her phone from the apron pocket, and opened her photo gallery. "I know I probably shouldn't say this, but I just felt bad for you. He comes here with an older woman, calls her Mary. They show up every Tuesday. I actually thought she was his wife, until I saw your photo in his wallet. But you never came in." She gently swiped her finger and showed me 2 pictures, one of Thomas smiling, his arm around a blonde woman with bright red lipstick and a tight dress. The second showed them entering a small hotel near the bar, holding hands, gazing at each other like lovers. I don't even remember how I left that bar. I just remember standing on the sidewalk, eyes dry, not a single tear. Only one thought rang clearly in my mind. It's time to end this. I opened my phone and called a moving company. It was nearly 11 p.m., but emergency services were still running. I scheduled them for 8 o'clock the next morning. When I returned to the apartment, I slipped in like a shadow. Everyone was already asleep. I didn't turn on the lights. Just used the flashlight on my phone, gathering everything I had paid for: the coffee machine, the Staub cookware set, the premium linen sheets from the living room, the bookshelf I assembled myself, and even the mini fridge in my bedroom. Every item I touched held a memory of the days I thought that if I just tried harder, was kinder, more giving, I'd be loved the way I deserved. I left my wedding ring on the dining table, the very place where Thomas once proposed to me with the words, "I'll never let you feel less than." That promise was now nothing more than a faded mark in the past. Early the next morning, the moving truck arrived right on time. I wasn't surprised when Martha stormed out of her room in a nightgown, hair a mess, shouting, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Are you trying to steal?" I turned to her, calm. "No, I'm just taking back what I bought. I kept all the receipts. If you'd like to verify, I'll have my lawyer send them to you." Her mouth dropped open, then she turned to the movers. "Stop! You have no right to take anything from my house." The crew leader pointed at me. "We're working under contract with the primary tenant, Emily Hart. The lease may be under Thomas Harper's name, but the payments were made by her. She's entitled to remove her belongings." She screamed in protest, but it was useless. When the last box was loaded, I turned back one last time. "You once said I didn't belong here. Today, I'm making that true. This apartment is all yours now, without a trace of me." I placed the key on the counter and walked out. The early sunlight hit my face, bright but no longer painful. The truck pulled away slowly, carrying not just furniture, but years of silent sacrifice for a family that never truly claimed me. I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew I had just reclaimed control over my life. 2 days after I moved out, Thomas finally called, but not to ask where I was. He called to blame me. "Emily, what are you doing? Come home so we can talk. Michael and Candace are freaking out and Mom is basically losing her mind." I sat on the balcony of my new apartment near the pharmacy, a cup of cold coffee in hand. I answered calmly, "There's nothing left to talk about, Thomas. I've stepped away, just like they wanted. The apartment now belongs to your family, so what's there to worry about?" He was silent for a few seconds, then his voice changed, now urgent. Wait, you really told Michael the truth about the rent? Are you just throwing us out on the street?" That's when I realized. They had no idea. "I'm not throwing anyone out, Thomas. I'm just stepping back from a responsibility I've silently carried for the past 3 years. And if your beloved eldest son and daughter-in-law can't afford rent, then they can move somewhere more suitable. That apartment didn't pay for itself." The next evening, I returned to the old apartment, but not to beg or demand fairness. I came to end everything with dignity. Martha opened the door, eyes wary. Thomas, Logan, and Candace sat in the living room. There were bags of trash on the floor, baby items strewn all over. No one greeted me. I took a seat calmly. "Before I leave for good, I think we should clarify a few things. First, Logan, Candace. From today, this apartment is no longer rent-free. The rent is $4,800 per month. Starting next month, I won't be paying a single cent." Candace's face went pale. What? What do you mean?" "Thomas said the company was covering it." I smiled. That allowance was cut off 2 years ago. Back then, Thomas didn't want to lose face, so he kept quiet. And I paid the full rent every single month from my part-time pharmacist salary. Logan snapped, "That's not possible. You're just an outsider. Who gave you the right to talk like that?" Thomas raised his hand, voice low. "Emily's right. She's been quietly covering most of our expenses for the past 3 years. I'm sorry. I didn't think it would come to this." Candace turned to Logan, panicking. "You said we'd be comfortable here, that we'd be okay once the baby comes. Now what? Where are we supposed to get almost $5,000 a month?" I crossed my arms. "Candace, I've already lived as an outsider in a home I paid for. I won't go through that again, especially not with people who never saw me as part of their family." Martha, who had been silent until now, finally jumped up and shouted, "You're destroying everything. You pushed my son into another woman's arms, and now you're crawling back demanding a place?" I looked her in the eyes. My voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. I didn't push anyone anywhere, Mrs. Martha. You're the one who encouraged your son to live a lie, to save face, to cling to status. You're the one who slowly drove me out of this house day by day, and now you've got what you wanted. I'm gone. Thomas turned his face away, unable to look at me. I pulled an envelope from my pocket and placed it on the table. This contains a full breakdown of every expense I've covered over the past 2 years. Rent, utilities, major purchases. If you or your mother want to be completely fair, I'm ready to work it out through attorneys. I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked toward the door. But if not, starting next month, Logan will need to figure out how to pay rent. As for me, I no longer have a duty to support this family through silence and endurance. Candace burst into tears. Martha said nothing, and Thomas, for the first time, looked like a man who had lost everything. I stepped out into the hallway, feeling lighter than I had in years. But I knew this wasn't the end. The collapse had only just begun, and I wasn't the one left to bear the consequences. 1 week after that confrontation, Thomas sent me a single text. I'll sign the papers. Let me know when you want to meet the lawyer. No apology, no explanation, not even a proper goodbye. And yet, I felt strangely free. That marriage had been dead for a long time. I was just the last one to realize I'd been standing in the middle of a funeral no one had bothered to hold. I never returned to the old apartment. My attorney and Thomas handled everything. Most of the assets were either mine or things I'd paid for, so the division wasn't too complicated. He had no way to argue, especially since the evidence of his affair was included in the divorce filing. 3 weeks later, I got news from an old acquaintance, the security guard at the building, that Logan and Candace had moved out. Candace was 8 months pregnant, but they couldn't keep up with rent, close to $5,000 a month. They'd gone to stay temporarily with her parents in Sacramento. That didn't bring me joy, but I didn't feel pity either. It was their choice, just like it had once been mine, to stay too long in a place I never truly belonged. Martha, my former mother-in-law, now lived alone in that large apartment. No more housekeeper, no grandchildren's laughter, no family. In the beginning, she kept calling to blame Tomas, to blame me, even demanding I restore her family's honor. But when Thomas finally said, "Mom, I don't have the strength to take care of you anymore. You should consider a nursing home," she went silent. No one stood up for her anymore. Everything she had tried to build through control and selfishness had become the very reason everyone left her. One quiet morning in mid-October, as I was making coffee in my new apartment, small, bright, and peaceful, my email chimed. The subject line made me pause. From Logan Harper, "I'm sorry, Miss Emily." I opened it. The message was short, but sincere. "I know I wasn't kind to you. I was too influenced by everything Grandma said. But I remember, whenever I had a stomach ache, you left medicine outside my door. When I lost my scholarship, you left milk and cookies. You weren't blood, but you tried like a mother would. I'm sorry for not seeing that sooner. If I may, I hope one day I can thank you in person." I read it over and over. I'm not sure why the tears came. Maybe it was the first time in years that someone acknowledged my presence mattered. Since the divorce, I went back to working full-time at the pharmacy. Work kept me busy, but I was happy. Each morning, I made coffee for myself. Each evening, I ate whatever I liked, no longer tiptoeing around someone else's preferences. On weekends, I joined yoga classes, took watercolor painting lessons, things I had put off for 10 years because the house wasn't done yet. I started truly living, no longer trying to be the ideal woman in my husband's family's eyes. No longer striving just to be accepted. I just needed to be Emily, myself, and that was enough. One day, while picking out nail polish at a salon, the technician asked, "What color do you like best?" I smiled, answering without hesitation, the one I never dared to choose before. She handed me a bottle of bright red, the kind Martha once criticized as too flashy for a woman our age. I wore it immediately, and when I stepped outside, looking at my hands in the sunlight, I saw a new woman. Not perfect, but free. My story didn't end in tears. It began again, in clarity. After all those years of silence, sacrifice, and shrinking myself to be accepted, I realized my worth doesn't come from pleasing others, but from living truthfully. Being cast out of a family I never belonged to turned out to be the most precious gift of freedom. From now on, I choose to live for myself. No permission, no apologies, no looking back. What do you think about Emily's choices and the fate of the others? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more powerful, emotional, real-life stories and life lessons coming soon.